So a bit of breaking news coming out in the last couple of minutes because WWE has announced the hosts this year for WrestleMania 37, and it's certainly an interesting pairing to say the least, because WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil have been announced as this year's hosts of WrestleMania 37. Now, before we get into everything, because there is a lot to talk about there, let's read the statement that WWE released about this. They said, quote, "WrestleMania is back in business as WWE today announced that WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan and WWE superstar Titus O'Neil will host the two-night pop culture extravaganza at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay on Saturday, April 10 and Sunday, April 11, 2021. Now, tickets for WrestleMania presented by Snickers are now on sale via Ticketmaster.com. The two-night event will stream live exclusively on Peacock at 8 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States and on WWE Network out everywhere else. A larger-than-life icon and pop culture phenomenon, easy for me to say, Hulk Hogan is one of the biggest names in WWE history. They then talk about him defeating on the Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden, talk about all of this sort of stuff when it comes to Andre the Giant, etc. They also speak about him, of course, being inducted into the Hall of Fame again this year as part of the NWO. They then talk about Titus O'Neil as being one of the most philanthropic, these big words, superstars in WWE history, and former tag team champion and 24/7 champion, and a fixture in the Tampa Bay community and passionate about giving back to families in need. O'Neil founded the Bullard Family Foundation, an organization that provides families and children in need with special moments, programs, and resources to help build character, develop relationships, and strengthen communities around them. In addition, O'Neil is an ambassador for WWE, helping thousands of individuals through various non-profits and WWE partners, including Susan G. Komen, the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and Special Olympics. His passion for community and uplifting others inspired him to write his first book, There's No Such Thing as a Bad Kid, How I Went From Stereotype to Prototype, in 2019. O'Neil is a Tampa Bay native and graduated from the University of Florida, where he was a standout football player for the Gators. So there you go, that's the announcement there that Titus O'Neil and Hulk Hogan will be the hosts of this year's WrestleMania event. Now, obviously, I wanted to talk about this briefly because that pairing, you can see it there, that pairing of Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil, of course, it's going to get people talking. And I think most people's first reactions to seeing this would be like, okay, because let's talk about the elephant in the room here. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, and of course the elephant in the room is Hulk Hogan's past comments that were leaked in 2015 as part of that tape scandal, the reason that he was absent from WWE history for 3 years. Not only did they sever their ties with Hulk Hogan, he was removed from the Hall of Fame. He got the treatment where he was essentially erased from the company's history, and that's because a tape was released, that infamous tape was released, and as part of that tape, there was Hulk Hogan saying incredibly offensive and racial and racist terms and language during it, and it was unacceptable then. It's still unacceptable now. Hulk Hogan has since apologised profusely for those comments and spoken about how they were made during a time where he was going through a divorce, and there was various issues in his life at that time, and that he's not a racist person. This is one of the only times he's ever used this racial language and all that kind of stuff. And look, there are a lot of people that, I think when you talk about this, there are a lot of people that have forgiven Hulk Hogan. And there are a lot of people that just, they understand that people can change over time, and they understand all of these things, but there is a lot of people that can't forgive Hulk Hogan. And there are a lot of people that say, you know what, I don't care that you've apologized for it. That language that you used is still offensive. It was still racist, and it was still derogatory, and it's unacceptable then, it's unacceptable now. I don't care that you apologized. I don't think it's good enough. And again, you can look into this so many different ways. First of all, Titus O'Neil. Let's talk about Titus O'Neil. Titus O'Neil being the host of WrestleMania 37, I think is great. I think is fantastic. Now, he's not really a regular on-screen performer or wrestler anymore for WWE. They have him doing all of this ambassador stuff. As they mentioned, there's a plethora of great initiatives and great charities he's assisted through WWE throughout the years, whether it is Susan G. Komen, Special Olympics, Boys and Girls Club. And if there's ever issues or community problems or something affecting the community in Florida, in Tampa Bay, you see Titus O'Neil on the news trying to help people. During the whole movement of Black Lives Matter last year, Titus O'Neil was very vocal in that, especially in the local Tampa Bay area when it came to protests and all that kind of stuff. Titus O'Neil especially in the state of Florida, but just in general, is an unbelievable human being. He really is, and some of the stuff that he has done for charity, for communities, for a variety of different projects is incredible. And there's nobody more deserving than Titus O'Neil to be the host of WrestleMania in his home state, in his own community. I think it's fantastic. I think Titus O'Neil, and he kind of was involved in it last year when it came to WrestleMania 36, because of course Rob Gronkowski was announced as the host last year, wasn't he? Of course, and then it was at the Performance Center. But after Gronk became the 24/7 champion, Titus O'Neil kind of took over from the hosting duties last year. And I remember coming back from the Firefly Funhouse match. He had the iconic sort of meme face, didn't he, where he was just staring into the camera like that, going, I can't really believe what's going on, all that kind of stuff. And I thought he was great in that role. So I'm glad to see him get that role again. The Hulk Hogan participation in that, and him specifically being paired with Titus O'Neil, it's going to raise questions, and it's going to raise discussions on. It goes down to what is really quite a hot topic at the moment in society, isn't it? Not just obviously the racial diversity and the Black Lives Matter movement and all that kind of stuff, but it's also going to raise the discussion once again about what Hulk Hogan said and has done in the past, whether it's acceptable that he's back with the WWE, whether it's acceptable that he's on camera, whether it's acceptable that he's put in positions like this and still an ambassador for WWE. It's going to come back to that, and it comes back to, do you forgive and forget, or do you remember and say that that kind of behavior is unacceptable? It's a very difficult situation, isn't it? And Titus O'Neil himself, and I wanted to make sure I got this right, so I did a little bit of research before I started shooting the video here, but Titus O'Neil himself was critical of Hulk Hogan, not only for what he said, obviously, but there was a lot of criticism towards Hulk Hogan of when he was reinstated to the WWE. There was the time, I believe it was 2018, I think it was backstage at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, and Hulk Hogan addressed the entirety of the WWE locker room. He said his apology about what he'd said in the past, and that he felt that he'd grown from it, but he also, the way that he framed this wasn't an apology of, I shouldn't have said it, I was wrong, and I've grown and I regret it and all that kind of stuff. He framed it as, I shouldn't have been caught on tape saying that, and I didn't know I was being filmed, and I didn't realise I was being recorded, and I would have never said that if I knew I was being recorded. And it's kind of like, well, you're not really apologising for what you said, you're apologising for getting caught there. And Titus O'Neil released a lengthy statement. Now, I've got the statement in front of me at the time, and again, this is like 3 years old now, so again, it's something worth considering there. But Titus O'Neil followed the lead by, at the time, The New Day, sharing his thoughts on Hulk Hogan's reinstatement to the Hall of Fame and the company, and the apology that he delivered, Hulk Hogan, before Extreme Rules in 2018. And O'Neil at the time tweeted a support for the statement that was released by The New Day and echoed their sentiment, that saying that Hulk Hogan's address showed, quote, a lack of true contrition, remorse, and a desire to change. Those are the words used by Titus O'Neil. Now, in saying that, he noted that Hogan's apology seemed to focus on the fact that he was recorded without his knowledge while using multiple racial slurs, instead of what Titus called, quote, remorse for the hateful and violent utterances he made, which reprised language that has caused violence against blacks and minorities for centuries. Now, it is worth noting that during that statement back in 2018, O'Neil did state that Hulk Hogan is entitled to be reinstated to the Hall of Fame, and he's supportive of people receiving second/third chances. Now, Titus O'Neil also quashed rumours which began to circulate following Hogan's locker room talk. The biggest thing, that O'Neil refused to shake Hulk's hand and ultimately walked out of the meeting. He said that didn't happen. Now, that was 2018, but this discussion about Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil's willingness to work with Hulk Hogan and his thoughts on Hulk Hogan's apology in 2018 was brought up once again in 2019, and Titus O'Neil had kind of changed his stance on the whole apology that Hulk Hogan had delivered. Titus O'Neil, again, wasn't bashful about expressing his displeasure of Hogan's apology. He didn't feel that Hogan was genuine with the words he chose, and Hogan seemed to imply that he was the victim, saying he didn't know he was being recorded. Well, fast forward a year later, after he said those things in 2019, and Hogan and Titus O'Neil actually got to work with each other at a Be a Star rally. Not only did they work together, but they also had a private conversation in which Titus O'Neil talked about when he did an interview with Wrestling Inc. in 2019. And this is what he had said. Titus O'Neil had kind of changed his mindset and opinion on this, and this is why I wanted to bring up as well. He said, quote, it was fine, and I finally had a chance to have a separate conversation with Hulk. Obviously, I had to put out a statement about the apology and how I received it, and how others might have received it too. But I had a private conversation with him long before the Be a Star rally and heard from his perspective. at that moment, I realized the situation he was in where he clammed up and started rambling. He could have been more concise and contrite with his message, but at the end of the day, I'm not one to put anyone in the doghouse forever. I'm not saying he was in the doghouse with me, but I like for men to be men and women to be women and both be transparent, truthful and honest with me. At the end of the day, we're part of this WWE family and it's our job to put smiles on people's faces. Arguably, he's put more smiles on anybody's face, young and old, than any other WWE superstar in the history of the company. Now, Hogan, Titus O'Neil rather, then talked about getting the opportunity to have that conversation with Hogan and doing that rally and then getting to watch him apply what he learned from his horrible choice of words. He said, quote, "He's used this as a teaching tool, and at the end of the day, that's what we all need to do from any mistake we've made. Use it as a teaching tool." So it would appear that when it comes to Titus O'Neil's perspective on Hulk Hogan, what he said in the past, his apology, it would appear that Titus O'Neil, I would assume from that kind of language, is saying that he's forgiven him and that he thinks that people do deserve second and third chances. I would, maybe forgiven him is maybe too strong a word to say. I would think from where he was saying there, he said that he's spoken to him and understands the position that Hulk Hogan was in and that maybe he didn't deliver his message as best as he could. He's also saying there that regardless of what Titus O'Neil thinks, they're part of the WWE company and they have to work with each other regardless of his opinion on Hulk Hogan and what he said in the past and his opinion on the apology, and that their job, as Vince McMahon would always say, is to put smiles on people's faces. So maybe, again, you have to kind of try and read between the lines, especially with stuff like this. And from what I'm gathering there, I kind of think that Titus O'Neil was saying, look, I'm happy for him to work with the WWE. I'm happy for him to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. And I think people deserve second and third chances. Maybe he still doesn't, obviously he still doesn't like the things that he said and is still absolutely offended by the things that he said in the past and doesn't believe that his apology was the best it could have been and the message wasn't the best it could have been. But he thinks that Hogan using this as a message of learning to people is significant, and he appreciates that he's putting smiles on people's faces still. So I don't know if maybe Titus O'Neil, maybe it was too rash of me to say that Titus O'Neil has completely forgiven Hulk Hogan, because by those words it doesn't look like he necessarily has. And again, is this really going to affect their relationship or their on-screen dynamic at WrestleMania? Are they even going to have instances together at WrestleMania? Who knows? Probably not. I mean, maybe. I don't know. We don't know the creative for WrestleMania at this point. It's going to bring that up again. That's my whole long-winded point here, that it's going to raise this point of discussion once more about should Hulk Hogan even be involved with the WWE right now? Is what he said forgivable in the past? In my opinion, using that kind of language isn't forgivable, and it's not a point about, I didn't know I was being filmed or I didn't know I was being recorded. It's not about that. It's the fact that you use that. And it's undeniable that he used that language in the past. He's admitted that he used that language in the past. And the degree of how remorseful he is about using that language is what's in question here. Is he remorseful that he got caught, or is he remorseful that he used the language? And again, this kind of discussion and this whole point and this whole topic is going to be discussed again, because he's paired up with Titus O'Neil at WrestleMania as the host. And it's certainly going to be something that I think probably polarizes opinion. Not in the sense that what he said is acceptable, because it's not acceptable. The thing that's going to polarize opinion is, should Hogan be in his position? Should he even been allowed back in the WWE? Should he have even been allowed after he did that apology? And again, Titus O'Neil's kind of stance in it, like I've just discussed here, is certainly going to be discussed as well, because initially Titus O'Neil was very upset and wasn't happy with Hogan's apology, but now he's kind of got to the point where it's a bit like, yeah, I'm still not happy with the apology, but I've spoken to him personally and he's using it as a tool to learn and help others learn, and he puts smiles on people's faces, and we have to do that as WWE talents. He's walking the corporate line there, I think, Titus O'Neil. But again, this is a discussion that's going to rage on. This is a discussion that's going to rage on. Ultimately, the news is that Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil will be hosting WrestleMania 37. What does that entail? Well, I guess the usual hosting duties mean you might open the show. You'll probably have some segments backstage. When it comes to Hulk Hogan as well, as I mentioned, it's going to be a busy weekend. He's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame for the second time. So it's not even the discussion that he's, should he even be in there in the first place, being reinstated. He's going to be inducted again during that weekend, which again is going to be a lot of discussion about if he should or shouldn't even be associated with the company and all that kind of stuff. Nevertheless, Hogan's going to be at the Hall of Fame. Hogan's going to be at WrestleMania. Last year, by all accounts, there were plans, and I don't know if they'll do this again this year, but last year there were plans for actually Hulk Hogan to be involved in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal and actually win the match. Now, Hogan wasn't actually going to get, take any bumps or do anything like that, but essentially he was going to come in and throw some people out and do that kind of stuff and actually win the match. Will they do that again? I don't know. I guess with the hosts, I mean, it's a possibility. It certainly is a possibility. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal this year. Who knows? Who knows? But we know he's going to be there for the Hall of Fame, and he's going to be there as the host alongside Titus O'Neil. So, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts, especially on this situation? I think it's a really interesting topic to talk about. What are your thoughts on Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil being revealed as the hosts of WrestleMania 37 this year? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, gut the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.